I thought moving here would be peaceful, a fresh start, but the moment we arrived, the HOA eyes were on us, watching, judging, waiting. There's something about perfect lawns and white picket fences that feels more like a cage than a home. I didn't know it yet, but this fight was about to start, and my grandfather had plans I couldn't even imagine. They followed every move we made, every step in our own yard. It felt like living in a glass box. I tried talking to them politely, but rules, every little thing became a problem. My grandfather always said, sometimes you've got to defend what's yours before they even try to take it. They send letters for the smallest things, bushes to tall. Mailbox not centered, gravel on the driveway every day. Another warning. Couldn't ignore it. And I knew if this continued, it would only get worse. The old ways my grandfather taught me, patience, observation, careful planning, they were about to come in handy this bridge. It's more than just wood and steel. It's the line between two worlds, theirs and ours. I walked it every morning, thinking maybe I could find a way to show them we wouldn't be pushed around. And then my grandfather called, with a plan that seemed impossible. Their trucks came like storm clouds, predictable, relentless, and I realized we weren't just neighbors anymore. This was a standoff waiting to happen, and sometimes the quietest ones make the loudest impact. My grandfather's voice echoed in my mind. Wait for the right moment. They'll trap themselves. They didn't knock. They just appeared. Paperwork in hand, authority in posture. I met their gaze calmly, but inside I was ready. Every word they said felt like a rule-book weapon, but we were ready to respond differently. My grandfather had lived here all his life, knew every road, every shortcut, every weak point. He smiled, a little mischief in his eyes. Time to teach them patience. Mesa, I didn't fully understand, not yet, but I trusted him. We prepared quietly, deliberately, no one watching, no one knowing. Each plank, each nail, each step, it was a message waiting to unfold, the calm before the storm. And sometimes, that's the most powerful moment of all. They had no idea what was coming. We watched from the shadows, letting them take their time. Rules don't always protect the powerful. Sometimes patience does. And then, the moment arrived. They were stuck, and we were free. Just like that. I never felt such a mix of relief and disbelief. My grandfather chuckled softly. See, sometimes the old ways work best. Tonight, patience had won. They didn't know how to react. Stuck on their side of the bridge, looking at us like we'd crossed some invisible line. I realized then, sometimes rules don't matter. Timing and patience do. My grandfather whispered, let them stew. Let them learn. They tried everything. Emails, threats, reminders of penalties, but we were calm. The more they pushed, the more obvious their own mistakes became. My grandfather had prepared for this. Every response had its place. I walked the bridge again, making sure everything held. Every plank, every gap, perfect. The quiet control of the moment contrasted sharply with their rising panic. It was almost poetic. A standoff without words, they argued, shouted, even considered calling in reinforcements. But all they could do was wait. Watching them scramble, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. My grandfather chuckled beside me. Patience, Mason, that's the real power. We talked stratagem quietly. No one else could hear. This wasn't about anger, it was about showing respect and setting boundaries. And sometimes, the right lesson comes from silence rather than conflict. The legal letters started arriving. Threats dressed up as official paperwork. I signed documents, prepared evidence. Everything had to be precise. Every step forward was carefully measured. Just like my grandfather had taught me. Courthouse steps always feel heavier than they look. The air, thick with expectation. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to protect what was rightfully ours. And sometimes, standing quietly firm makes the loudest statement of all. He never left the bridge unattended. Night or day, he kept watch. Every shadow, every sound. He knew the land like the back of his hand. It was quiet reassurance that we weren't alone, and that patience works in its own way. They plotted, they schemed, but nothing. It changed. The more they fought, the more they exposed their lack of control. And sometimes, chaos teaches them more than confrontation ever could. Mason and grandfather standing on a hill overlooking the bridge at dawn, fog lifting, light breaking through clouds, camera-wide cinematic aerial shot, epic and peaceful. Mood, quiet, triumph, anticipation. The bridge had become our line of defense, not just wood but a statement. Every day I checked it, making sure nothing could topple our stand. Sometimes, strength is silent, and patience speaks louder than anger. They tried to find loopholes, contacting lawyers and neighbors, but every step they took seemed to trap them deeper in their own frustration. And I realized, the more they fought, the less control they really had. We planned every contingency, thinking ahead like chess players. Every move was deliberate, every choice intentional. Sometimes, preparation is the strongest shield you can have. I wasn't just defending my property, I was proving that rules exist to protect, not intimidate. One signature, one file, one carefully worded letter at a time. It felt slow, but each step built momentum for change. They thought the night would work in their favor. But the bridge was quiet, strong, and we were ready. Sometimes, anticipation itself can disarm the strongest opponent. They tried everything, backing up, rerouting, calling for help, but the bridge held. Their frustration grew louder than their authority, and I knew patience had done its work. He knew every nail, every creak of the wood, every shadow in the fog. It wasn't about stopping them, it was about showing control without force, and in that quiet authority was ours. I documented everything, photos, emails, timestamps. Evidence is quiet power. It speaks when words fail. Every detail mattered, because one mistake could cost the lesson we'd worked for. Their own rules became their prison. Every argument exposed mismanagement. They weren't expecting patience, planning, or quiet strength, and that's when I realized the collapse had begun. Finally, the night felt ours. Not because we wanted to punish, but because we stood firm and showed what patience and respect can accomplish. The HOA was trapped in its own maze, and we had guided the path. They arrived with confidence, and found themselves powerless. Sometimes authority looks small when patience stands tall. My grandfather smiled from the trees, quietly proud. I decided the story should be told, not to embarrass, but to show truth. Sometimes, letting others witness quiet courage amplifies its impact, and people began to notice. They tried every trick in their book, and failed. The bridge wasn't just wood and nails. It was strategy, patience, and respect for boundaries. Every move they made only proved the lesson further. Evening came, and still we maintained control. Every check, every step, it reminded me of the power of preparation. Sometimes, the quietest guardians are the most effective. I wrote down everything, the frustration, the triumph, the patience it took. Words can hold memory, and memory teaches lessons. This was our story, carefully preserved. They were unraveling in their own rules and procedures. Every effort to reclaim control only highlighted their weakness, and that's when the dominoes started to fall. We didn't celebrate loudly. This was quiet, deliberate victory. Control, patience, and understanding had done what force could not, and the night felt heavy with lessons learned. They finally left, not with anger, but with a realization of their limits. Sometimes, surrender isn't about loss, it's about learning humility. And the bridge stood strong, silent witness to the event. The world seemed calmer now, as if the land itself approved. I could finally breathe, knowing patience and respect had won. Every morning I was reminded that quiet courage has power. The bridge wasn't just a structure, it was proof. Proof that patience, planning, and quiet courage matter more than force. And as the sun rose, I realized this was just the beginning of what we could achieve together. The morning air felt different, lighter, calmer. The tension of the past days had lifted. The bridge stood strong, a silent reminder of patience and perseverance. My grandfather and I exchanged a glance, knowing this chapter was ending, but the lessons would last forever. I traced the planks with my hand, feeling every nail and grain of wood. This bridge wasn't just a barrier, it was proof that calm, deliberate action can solve even the toughest conflicts. Sometimes the quietest victories leave the loudest mark. My grandfather's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. "We did it right," he said. There was no need for applause or recognition. The lesson itself was enough. Years of experience had shown me that wisdom and patience can outshine any rule book. The HOA could send all the letters they wanted. The bridge, and our patience had already spoken louder than any warning. Rules exist to guide, not intimidate. And sometimes, a small act of courage teaches that best. I smiled quietly, knowing we had made our point without a single fight. Looking down from above, I realized the bridge symbolized more than just wood and nails. It was patience, strategy, and quiet determination made tangible. Sometimes, the simplest structures carry the deepest lessons.